Greetings, Indie Warriors, and welcome to I Dream of Indie. Put your boxing gloves on and step into the ring, because today we're taking a look at Real Boxing 2 on the Nintendo Switch, as opposed to Fake Boxing, or the sequel to Real Boxing, a game I've never even heard of until now. But first off, I have to say that I quite enjoy the sport of boxing. I was a big fan of Mike Tyson's work in the ring as a kid, and I loved some of the other boxing video games that were around. Now, of course, you had the instant classics, such as Punch-Out on the NES, but I even delved into some of the lesser-known titles like Evander Holyfield's Real Deal Boxing on the Genesis, or George Foreman's KO Boxing, which wasn't quite as good but still wasn't terrible. These games were more of an arcade-style approach to the sport, but they were a whole lot of fun. Later on, I did get into some of the Fight Night series as well, which was more of a realistic take on boxing, and I'd say that type of gameplay is more close to what we have here with Real Boxing 2. So both Real Boxing and Real Boxing 2, like many games that find their way over to the eShop, began as mobile titles. From what I can gather, people mostly seem to enjoy them, with the big knock being all of the random ads that would pop up from time to time. You won't really have to worry about that aspect of things here in the Switch version, though some of the game's mobile trappings will rear their head in the career mode. I'll get into that a little bit more later though. In Real Boxing 2, you're going to begin the game with a tutorial. You'll be learning some of the basics of surviving in the ring. You can press the ZR button for a right jab, and you can move the right stick in a variety of different directions to toss hooks, body shots, and uppercuts. If you feel like you're taking a beating and you need to regain some of your stamina, you can also clinch onto your opponent, where you'll then need to mash on the X button in a mini game of sorts to see which boxer best recovers. You can of course guard incoming attacks as well, and the game will eventually introduce more advanced attacks like a charged up super punch and special moves throughout the single player campaign. Before stepping into the squared circle for yourself though and setting out on your journey, you're going to have to create your own character. Strangely, you can't create a female character in the game, which I thought was a little disappointing, as not only would Silent Signs have appreciated the option, but I also enjoy female boxing, wrestling, and combat sports. Maybe it's unlockable at a later point. There are a lot of unlockables in that career mode, but overall, it would have been nice to have the option immediately available. So initially, the character creation that is available here is going to feel rather limited. There are just a few different body types and faces to choose between out of the gate, so if you were hoping to make an accurate representation of yourself when beginning your journey, you'll likely be unable to do so, at least until you've unlocked more options in that single player campaign. Once you've made a character, however, you can choose to go right into the career mode and unlock more things, or take part in some versus action with a second player. In the versus mode, you'll have 15 characters initially to choose between, some of which were clearly inspired by real fighters. You can probably figure it out. Others are more there for comedic effect. It's possible these characters have different stats and attributes, but it really didn't feel that way and nothing was listed, so I'm thinking not in versus mode anyways. At the least, you are able to choose the amount of rounds that you want the fight to go for. You can choose a different special ability, which helps to set the different opponents apart at least a little bit, so it has that going for it, but really the core game is going to take place in the career mode, and the versus mode feels more like a distraction, something to mess around with for a little bit of time, and it could have been more fleshed out. Give the game credit here though, the career mode is quite robust. You'll be spending a lot of time here if you want to unlock everything. You have a giant map full of fights to partake in as you travel across the globe. Each blip on the map features a story fight and a legendary fight where you can earn different currencies and items. As I mentioned earlier, you'll also occasionally be taught a new technique or two. Things do get a little confusing because you have both coins and a diamond currency that can be earned that will unlock different cosmetics, as well as help you to go through some training mini games that will increase your stats and help you to take down harder opponents. I feel like they could have kept things a bit more simplistic here. I don't really like all these different currencies in games like this, but again, it was originally a mobile game, and the game doesn't fully escape some of those trappings and systems that were originally implemented. It's not overwhelming and super confusing, but why have all these currencies? Why not just have the coins and be able to purchase what you want and do your training? I say keep it simple. Regardless, in going through that career mode and unlocking more items, some fun is to be had, and that's because the core boxing isn't all that bad in Real Boxing 2. Mechanically, the game feels surprisingly pretty good. I enjoyed using the right stick to toss different punches, and even for Silent Signs, who isn't a big fan of boxing, she was able to pick it up and play the game pretty easily. Knocking an opponent down felt satisfying enough, and it felt like there was at least some impact behind every single punch I was tossing out there. I enjoyed unlocking the silly new props that I could then take into the ring with me, like spiky gloves, and while this isn't the deepest, most intricate boxing experience, there ultimately is some fun to be had. I just don't get to play boxing games all that often anymore, so that in itself felt refreshing. Visually, considering this is a Nintendo Switch game, I was somewhat impressed with this title. It's not that terrible looking. The boxers are actually fairly detailed, they animate halfway decent, and perhaps most impressively of all, the game ran pretty smooth on the Switch. Dare I say it was even getting 60 frames per second at times. I'll be danged, you even get a little movement out of the crowd in the background, and the ring itself looks nice. So while the visuals do accurately capture the feel and look of boxing, the sound design is a little bit lackluster, I would say. It's not terrible as far as the punches, the impact behind them hitting your skin, that sounds okay, but I feel like they could have done a better job with some of the intros, the bombastic songs that play, all of that energy is a little bit lacking. The game does try to capture the over-the-top nature of what boxing is as a sport, and with some success, but it's not completely nailing it out of the park here either, and falls a little bit flat and lacks some energy at times. But look, let's consider the price of this game here. At the time of this review, you can get it discounted at $8.99. Normally, it's only priced at $14.99, and you don't have an amazing boxing game here, but you certainly have a serviceable one for that asking price. The core gameplay is fundamentally sound, there is some fun to be had in the career mode, and it will definitely keep you busy for a while as well. In a world where these somewhat realistic boxing games seem to be less and less of a thing, I did enjoy my time with this one, even though its mobile roots do hold it back from being king of the ring, and the versus mode is a little bit lacking as well.
One, two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Thank you so much for watching the latest video from 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐿. We would now like to take a moment to pay tribute to our great indie warriors who support us through channel memberships. Bill T, Christian Cruz, 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐞, Mitchell Hall, Chris Jackson, Nathan Moore, Adriana Amato, 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐞, Skepticism, Haley, Julian Colbus, Jen Rose, Jesse, CPM Bunny, JRS8, Ray Lynn, and Marky Mint. Thank you so much for all you do for independent developers, publishers, and for 𝐦𝐿𝐴. Everybody else, please head down to the description box below. Let's defeat the gaming echo chamber and bring a voice to the voiceless ones in gaming.